All right, folks, it is noon, and I am very happy to welcome my guest, Laura Gassner Otting, who is the author of a book called Limitless. I put up a post earlier today, Laura, on my Instagram that I do not wish to live a life that is average. I don't know what it is that's inside of me, but I know that I don't want to be average. And so I felt that that dovetails nicely into what we're going to talk about today, which is how to be limitless. I'm going to start with why this book and why this book now.
Yeah, so the book came about because I had spent 20 years in executive search. I was paid by my clients to find the most successful people in the world and recruit them away to work on their behalf. Awesome. Sounds like a little bit of a hard job, except it wasn't because I was calling all these people who were super successful, but they were all calling me back, Joy, because despite all this success, they weren't very happy. And I became fascinated by this question of why doesn't success equal happiness? So
Mm.
the book is really based on my 20-year career in executive search and then my own career, dropping out of law school to join a presidential campaign, leaving the White House midway through the first administration, going to a marquee executive search firm that did the best work in the country, and then leaving that to found my own firm, and then later selling that firm when I was at the top of my game. All things that nobody does. You're so successful. Why are you leaving? And the truth is, I was super successful, and for a while I was happy, but then I became a little bit less happy. And each time I wanted to do something else, I didn't want to be average, right? And so the book really reflects on what I learned during those 20 years in search about what makes people both successful and happy and what I had to find in my own life to do the same thing.
And so much of our identities are locked into lawyer or doctor or whatever, right? And then realizing that maybe that's not exactly the identity that gives us happiness is often a disconcerting moment, isn't it?
Well, yes. And our identities aren't even shaped by us. So what happens is when you're 15, 16, 17 years old, somebody's like, "Hey, Joya, pick a trade, pick a
Mhm,
major, pick a college, pick a job, pick a path, pick a career." And you're like, "Okay."
mhm.
But you know what you don't have when you're 15, 16, 17 years old? A frontal lobe, like
Yeah.
the actual part of your brain that dictates good, solid, sound decision making. So we're asked to make a decision that's going to impact the rest of our lives before we are literally capable of making a good one. And so we look back at 25, at 35, and at 45 and on, and we're like, is this it? Like, is this what my life is going to be? I did that. I got to the very top. I was sitting in my corner office overlooking the park, and I was like, I got to the top. And I was like, the top of what? Like, I filled in all the check boxes on that big long checklist. The check boxes are full. Why am I empty?
Mm. I love that you brought up the science piece of that because people often ask, why can't I rent a car until I'm 25? It's because your prefrontal cortex is still developing until you're
Right.
25. That's what houses your impulsive thinking, and that's what
Yes.
houses your ability to do deep processing and logical thinking. So I love that you bring that up. And then, yeah, I was raised in an Indian household, and I don't think that any Indian parent in my generation has ever asked their kid if they were happy. They just my
Right.
dad was like, "You're gonna be a gynecologist, right?" And I was like, "No."
Yes.
I've known since I was 4 years old that I wanted to be a TV anchor, and there came a moment after 20 years of doing that that I realized that that identity isn't something I wanted anymore. This is what I wanted to do. I had more impact with women's leadership in the way that I do today, and I really love what we're gonna dig into today, which is how is it that you can continue to be happy? Because I wanna start asking that question now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, here's the thing, like, at some point, we're like, "Okay, I'm gonna do this thing," and then every 7 years or so, like, we change. I mean, what is it, like, all the cells in your body regenerate after 7 years? Like, you've got the
Mhm.
same DNA, but you're a totally different human, and
Yeah.
so, like, think about it, it's 2022. Are you the same person you were in 2015? I mean, I'm not, but even if either one of us were, the world is completely different. So everything changes around us. And the problem is that we're told to seek happiness. Go seek happiness. And we think, I'll be happy when? I'll be happy when I get married. I'll be happy when I have a child. I'll be happy when I get divorced. I'll be happy when I gain 10 pounds, when I lose 10 pounds, when I get the job, when I get the house. I'll be happy when. And the
Mm.
truth is, and if the last few years have taught us anything, is that life is short. We
Yeah.
shouldn't wait to be happy when, we should be happy now. And so what I learned in my work is that it's not happiness, because happiness is ephemeral. You're happy if your best friend works the cubicle next to you. You're happy if it's like take your dog to work day. You're happy if your office gives you free dry cleaning. You're
Mhm.
happy. But happiness is not fulfillment, right?
Mhm.
Happiness is not alignment. It's not flow. It's not what I call consonance. When what you do matches who you are. So consonance is like, do you know those moments when the very best of what you do, right? You were saying right now, this is what you do. You have much bigger impact right now. The very best of what you do is being called upon to do this work, to solve a problem that you care about, right? Helping more women get into leadership positions. And you're being rewarded for that work financially, karmically, emotionally, whatever the way is that you need, in ways that actually matter to you. So, we live in a society that says like make more money. Well, if you're making lots and lots and lots of money, but you're miserable, it doesn't matter how much money you have, right? So
Mhm.
we have to be doing work that we love, work that is like the very best of us is being called upon to solve a problem we care about, and we're being rewarded for in a way that is meaningful to us. That's when we are in consonance.
So there's four pieces to this word consonance, and I want to talk about them. The first one is calling. So
Yes.
what does that mean, calling?
So calling is this gravitational force. It's the thing that you want to get up to do in the morning. It's a business that you want to build. It's a leader who inspires you. It's a cause that you want to serve. Maybe it's a family that you wish to nurture, right? It is the thing that you actually care about. And the problem with calling, we get it wrong, is because we confuse calling for purpose, and we think purpose has to have the word higher or lofty in front of it. Like if you're not literally giving the shirt off your back to poor kids in need, you're just selling out. But the truth is, like, your purpose may be curing cancer. Awesome. Your purpose may be making tons of money so that you can get out of debt so that your children get to make different decisions than you had to make. That's awesome too. Your calling may be buying a Maserati and a beach house. I am not here to purpose shame anybody. Your calling is simply your calling. And we can't be insatiably hungry for someone else's goals, for someone else's purpose, and for someone else's calling. So we have to figure out what matters to us and just go after that unapologetically.
Okay, connection. So
Connection.
how does that dovetail out of calling?
So if you called in sick to work today, would anybody notice? Would anybody care? How connected is the work you are doing on a daily basis to that calling that you just identified that you want to serve? We spend all of this time trying to get to inbox zero, and unless your job is getting to inbox zero, that's not really connected, right? So look at your to-do list, look at your calendar. What's on there? Is that work connected to your calling? Is it getting you? Is going to this meeting, is being on that task force, is doing that report getting you closer to get to that calling, or is it taking you farther away from it? And we get this wrong because we confuse action for impact. We get so busy being busy, saying yes to anything we get asked, maybe because we're the most perfect person for the job, but probably because we're the most proximate person when they were looking for help, right? So, any of your moms who are listening, you're walking out of your kid's school one day and suddenly someone rushes up to you and there's like, oh my God, the chair of the bake sale just got sick. You need to chair it. Would you please help? And you're like, okay. I guess one of the things that I care about is spending more time with my kids, and they need me, so I should do it. But the truth is, you then spend the next 24 hours yelling at your kids because you're like stressed out about the report that you have that's due at work. And also now you're chairing the bake sale. So you're actually not spending quality time with your kids,
Yeah.
and you're not getting the report done, right? So is the thing that you're doing connected to that? Are you busy, or are you actually making an impact on what you care about?
I'm an Enneagram 7, so I know what busy is. But the connection piece is something that I do a lot of work with in the members of my mastermind, which is I ask them to identify their values. And
Yes.
this may be the very first time that they've ever done it, but I'm like, here's why this is important. This is an opportunity for you when you feel like you're out of alignment with your work, you're out of alignment with your to-do list, to look at your values and say, are those finding their way into your day? And if not, how do you retroactively put that in? So I feel like it's another way of saying what you're saying about connection.
Absolutely. I have a friend, Brant Menswar, who wrote a book called Black Sheep. And in it, he has people identify their values. And then he takes it one step further and he goes, take your calendar out. He literally has people in his trainings take their calendar out and gives them a pen. And he's like, I want you to write down next to every single thing on your calendar, which value of yours is represented. And it's amazing how many things don't have anything written next to them. Because the truth is that if everything on your calendar is important to somebody else, there's not enough room on it for the stuff that's important to you.
Yes. Yes. I remember interviewing Lisa Druxman, who's the founder of something called Fit for Mom. And when she
Mm,
makes her to-do list, before she even makes her to-do list for the week, she looks at her values and builds her to-do list around that, which I always thought was
yes,
a fascinating way to strategize for the week.
absolutely.
All right, contribution. What does that mean?
So if connection is all about the work, right? Is this work connected to my calling? Contribution is really all about you. How does this work allow me to live the lifestyle that I want, to have the flexibility that I need, to have the career trajectory that I desire? Is it letting me manifest my values on a daily basis? How is this work contributing to the life that I'm looking to build?
Mhm. Why do women seek permission, though, to be able to do that? Because that's where I feel like they get tripped up. They need to sit with someone else to grant them permission to be able to take a day off and dedicate to self-care.
Because we have been told that ambition is a dirty word. Ambition in our careers, ambition in our personal lives. Women have been told that ambition is not becoming. Oh, she's so ambitious. Okay, have you ever heard anyone say, "Oh, he's so ambitious"? No, they're like, "He's a go-getter,"
Yeah.
right? Like, "He's inspired, he's an achiever." Like, "Oh, but she's so ambitious." Now, I'm not gonna get political, but there are studies that show that when Hillary Clinton was a Secretary of State, she had one of the most popular opinion ratings in the world. She's one of the most respected women in the world. But the minute she decided she wanted more power, she was going to run for president, suddenly plummeted, right? Because we don't like women who are ambitious. But here's the thing. The question I ask women who are uncomfortable with this idea of I want more, I say, would having more money, would having more time, would having more freedom, would having more power, would having more leverage, we're having more microphone, we're having more platform, would having more allow you to show up better for the people who you love and the causes you hold dear? And
Mm.
every one of those women goes, "Yeah." And I say, "Fine. So it's not your ambition, it's your responsibility." As women, we feel very comfortable with responsibility. We don't like ambition, but we feel very comfortable with responsibility. So you are responsible for taking better care of yourself, for taking that day off, for asking for that raise, for doing all of those things because it allows you to then do better for other people. I have a friend, Alex Carter. I'm going to hold up her book because I just interviewed her on my podcast yesterday. It's a book called Ask for More.
Yeah.
And her book is on 10 questions to negotiate anything. She's the head of Columbia University's mediation clinic. And what Alex said to me was, any woman who's ever uncomfortable negotiating, she reminds them that when they are in there negotiating for themselves, they're actually negotiating for the entire sisterhood,
Mhm.
because the way that we teach people how to treat us affects all of us.
But one thing here, Laura, when people are seeking that permission, how do you short circuit that process where you're wanting somebody else to give you permission? How do you give yourself permission? Just a tactical piece right here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like you said it earlier, you said, like, I don't want to live an average life, right? I think we also have to surround ourselves with people like you. So
Mhm.
there is a thing that says, like, it's a well known, you're the average of the five people you keep closest to you. But here's something that's super interesting. Those people don't actually have to be proximate to you. They
Mm.
could be the five people who you see most on social media. Maybe they're not even your friends. Maybe they're just five people who are demanding more of themselves all the time, right? They are people like Alex Carter, Ask for More, my friend Erin Gargan King, who wrote the book You're a Big Deal, right? They're people, Sally Krawcheck, who wrote Own It, people
Mhm.
who go out there and they're like, I am made for more and I'm worth more. And if you spend time, like if you take five people who are constantly giving themselves permission and telling you to give yourself permission, and you put them at the top of your feed and you get notifications when they post, you will automatically start feeling more empowered, because we are the average of the five biggest inputs and influences we get all the time, whether those people are proximate friends or whether they are complete strangers. So
I
I
love
think it's a matter of changing your inner circle to uplift you and provide that foundation that, you know it, you, you don't have to give yourself permission if you're living in a world where people are just permitted.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, Laura. I love that. So I want to recap for anybody who's just joining right now. I see the comments are starting to flood in, that those 5 people you surround yourself with don't actually have to be physical people in your world. Because I'm often doing that scan, by the way, and I'm intentionally changing when I'm not happy with the 5 people I'm surrounded with. But I
And
love,
by the way, if the 5 people that you see all the time are complaining, if they're negative, if they're uncertain, if they're full of doubt, you're also gonna go that direction.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think about the time that I was at my highest weight is because I was hanging around people that were at their highest weight, right? So
You
you're
know, that's interesting because this study that I got this from was actually a study that was published it was a study that was published in a health journal, and I read the article in the New York Times, and that was specifically the study that said that if the people who you surround yourself with are overweight, you are more likely to be overweight. It was actually specifically about weight.
Yeah, but I love that you can reverse engineer that starting today. If anybody's listening right now, change who's on your feed when it comes to Instagram or
Absolutely.
Twitter or even Facebook, and start to eliminate the people that are spewing the negativity, because you're not doing yourself any favors.
Yeah, just mute them for 30 days and see if things feel better, and I promise you, the minute that they get unmuted and they pop back up, you'll be like, "Oh, yeah, oh," you'll you'll
There's like a
you'll know
visceral
exactly who they
reaction to
are.
that. All right, let's talk about control. So for those of you that are just joining, we're talking about this concept of consonance. And consonance is a couple of things. It's calling, it's connection, it's contribution, it's control. But what are we really talking about, Laura, here? We're talking about defining your own version of what success and lifestyle is.
Yes. So control is an interesting one. Control really says, how much personal agency do I have over how much my work connects to that calling and how much it contributes to my life? So, how much control do you have over the projects you're assigned at work, the team members that are given to you, the potential clients that you have, where and when and how you get to do your work? And here's what I think is so interesting about control is that I have this assessment online at limitlessassessment.com, and it's been online since January of 2019. There are like 67 questions on it, so it takes like 20 minutes to do. It's pretty intense, but it's your life. You should take it pretty intensely. And at limitlessassessment.com, I've had almost 6,000 people have taken this assessment since before, during, and now as we're coming out of the pandemic. And of the 3 areas of calling, connection, contribution, and control, the only one that has gone up during the pandemic is actually control. And
Mm,
here's why. Because at the beginning of the pandemic, when bosses were freaked out about, oh my God, how is this company going to stay in business? They basically got rid of anything that wasn't mission critical.
mhm.
And people suddenly were able to do work from home. They had to balance homeschooling and laundry and all the things that, everything was coming at them, but they got to decide when they wanted to work, how they wanted to work. They suddenly had control over just doing the work that actually matters. And so, control is something that's really important to us. And in fact, control is so important, autonomy matters, that there are studies that show that people are more likely to take work that gives them more control than work that gives them more power, because we want to feel like we have some personal agency.
I love that. I love that. One of the things that was always a deal breaker for me for all the years that I did television is that I wanted to write my own things. I didn't want to read somebody else's script. And I did business news, and the markets are moving so fast. I had the ability to do that. But
Right.
that was by design and by intention, because I wanted to be more than anything in the world writing. The bonus was that
Yes.
I got to deliver what I wrote.
Yes. Yes.
All right, folks.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry. So, but I think that that's really important, because what you did is you figured out what part of the work you really liked and how you could do more of that work while doing less of the other stuff. And I think that's the thing, because at every age and at every stage, the way that we approach our work, what we like to do in our work, what gives us joy from our work really changes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We are having a conversation today with Laura Gassner Otting about the topic of how to be limitless. And Laura, I'm in front of my membership of women leaders every single day. And so I picked 4 things
Yes.
of all the collateral, and you're quite prolific with the things that you post, but I picked 4 things that I wanted to talk about, that I hear again and again when
Yep.
people are asking me questions, which is, one is, find what fuels you. How does one even drill down on this?
Yeah, I mean, finding what fuels you is a really great way to get closer into finding your calling, right? It's like thinking about what are the things that you do when you can choose to do anything. So, what fuels me? The answer clarifies that purpose. It gives you greater alignment with your working life. It's really thinking about, um, when you are in that zone, when you're really enjoying the work that you're doing, when you feel like you're firing on all cylinders, right? It's a sort of this fundamental state of leadership. The you are doing work. You are leaping over tall buildings. You are walking through fire. You're crushing it, right? You're selling the deal. You're closing that big presentation. This is the moment when you're like, yes, I love it. I'm like all in. And there's this, you feel a different kind of energy. And so it's thinking about those times when you're just really in that, this is fueling me. This is actually energizing me. I'm a raging introvert by nature. And which is funny because I spend my living, as a professional speaker.
Doing this.
Right. I mean, this is a sort of a funny thing. And there was a time when I'd be on stage and I was like talking like a TED talker, right? I was like imitating everybody else being on stage. And I'd get off stage and all I'd want to do was go back to my hotel room and curl up in fetal position and order in room service and not even watch Netflix because I just couldn't, take any additional input. And then I learned how to just be me on stage, my like
Mhm.
spastic moxie driven, just I'm who I am. And I get on stage and I do my thing and I get off and suddenly I loved talking to people afterwards, right? I figured out how to do the work in a way that it energized me. And because it fueled me, it actually became not a chore. It became like a really exciting adventure.
I love that. Find what fuels you. Number two is make deposits in the future bank of you. Now, I'll be honest, I every day at 2:30 have an accountability partner, and for 5 minutes we write what our lives look like 12:21 p.m. on June 22nd, 2024. Who are we sitting with?
Hmm.
What are we wearing? What kind of money sits in the bank? What kind of house are we living in? And writing that in a great deal of specificity. And I learned this by following Ryan Serhant. I don't know if that name means anything to
Yes.
you, but he's on Million Dollar Listing. And it's something I learned from reading his book. But like that becomes your future boss. That vision of who you are 2 years from now is who you work for. So is that in alignment with what you mean by making deposits in the future bank of you?
Yeah, absolutely. I years ago, Matthew McConaughey gave an Oscar acceptance speech, and so he was like, people ask me who my hero is, and he's like, my hero. He's like, that's me 2 years
Yeah,
from now. And when 2 years from now, it'll be me 2 years from then. And 2 years from then, it'll be 2 years from them. And he's like, I always want to be trying to impress my future self. Right. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. So when we think about our identity, right, you were talking in the beginning, like I am a lawyer, I am an accountant, I'm a gynecologist, I'm a newscaster. That's a very sort of, finite destination mentality. And when we're in this finite destination mentality, that all that says is that there's a finite limit to our growth. Right. And
mhm,
I don't want to be in that place. I don't want to live that average life. So if you hold on too tightly to that one identity with this uncertainty, about whether or not you're going to lose it, the only thing that's certain is that you're going to lose the growth. And so being able to make deposits in that future bank of you, what I mean by that is to sort of stop and to think about where you want to be in the future. Who do you want to be 2 years from now, and 5 years from now, and 10 years from now? And if you are in that place, what will you have had to learn? What
mhm.
experiences will you have had to have? What knowledge do you need to collect? What kind of network do you need to build? And to start doing some of those things, the only jobs I've ever wanted have been jobs for which I've had absolutely no obvious qualifications. That's what has made them interesting, right? So the space in between what you're qualified to do and what you want to do, that's the credit advance that you need to give yourself. We are told all the time, follow your passion. And I think follow your passion is the world's worst advice because follow your passion says as soon as you find your passion, all you need to do is follow it and everything's going to be wonderful. But here's the thing, if you follow your passion, the minute something gets hard, the minute you get told no, the minute you're rejected, you're going to go, oh, I guess that wasn't my passion. I should find something else and follow that because then
Mhm.
that's all going to be rainbows and skittles. But the truth is, we can't follow our passion. We have to invest in our passion. We need to join groups like yours. We need to watch shows like this. We need to, watch TEDx's and read books and go to networking events. We have to invest in our passion. It has to be uncomfortable because the falling down and getting up and falling down and getting up is where the magic happens. That's where we learn and we iterate and we innovate and we change. So the future, those deposits that we're making are the deposits that allow us to get from what we're qualified to do today to the thing that's really interesting that we want to do tomorrow.
Yeah. A woman approached me this last week and she wrote me saying she wanted to start a mentorship platform. She's like, I'm looking at the data, and here are my conclusions. I'm like, yeah, but have you piloted this idea? Like, have you
Hmm.
actually implemented it? Have you matched 10 mentors with their mentees? Because I'm telling you, you're going to learn a lot more from the execution of that idea than sitting here telling me about this data that you're like luxuriating and bathing in about how women need mentorship. You haven't implemented shit.
Yeah.
And so until you've implemented it, you are doing yourself a disservice. And frankly, I think it's idealistic.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, taking the all the best laid plans, right? What was that Mike Tyson quote that everyone's got a plan till they get punched in the face?
Yeah,
You got
absolutely.
to take it out on the road.
I want to remind some of the folks. Amy has joined us. We've got a few other folks who have joined us. I want you to put your questions in the chat. Laura and I are going to keep chatting for a little bit longer, and then we're going to take your questions. So, Amy, go ahead and put that in the chat. And I know you have a ton of questions for this conversation that we're having here today. All right, the next one is to go smaller to get bigger. Smaller
Now,
to get bigger.
this one seems a little counterintuitive, right? Like we're told, like, get the biggest job you can get, the fanciest title you can get. But here's the thing: if you are early in your career, being the head of a division where you are like the head of one of 12 divisions, that's 14 layers down, that seems
Yeah.
like a bigger title. You're the head of the division. But if you were in a more junior role at a higher office, right? So say like you're working in some sort of assistant level position, but you're in the CEO's office. You're going to be in the meetings. You're going to hear the calls. You're going to be meeting all the people. You're going to be building that Rolodex. And sometimes earlier on in your career, you are able to actually grow by putting yourself sort of in the deal flow, putting yourself in the room where it happens, if you will. And so that's a great way to be able to sort of leapfrog, right? Because you can go from there. Say you're in that bigger office, even if you're in a smaller role, you can still do incredible work. You can still do deep work. You can still volunteer for projects. You're going to know how all those projects get assigned. So you'll be able to be like, actually, that's sort of an interesting thing. I'd like to do more of that. And suddenly you get to leapfrog above all the other people who are toiling, even with the big fancy title, you know, in the quiet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing you say is, what is it that you're doing outside of your regular job that there might be something that you can develop? Maybe you're a fantastic event planner, even though
Mhm.
you're in risk and compliance. How do I take that nugget, that pearl, that idea, and further that? How, let's talk tactical here for a second.
Yeah, I mean, some of it is taking an attention inventory, right? It's like, what are the things that you enjoy doing outside of your paid work? So, if there may be things that you do in your place of worship, in your community, for your family, and you're like, I actually like to do that. And those are skills that you're still gaining. Right. So if you're still gaining those skills, we can look past our resume and we can bring those to bear. Sometimes you need to take those skills and actually have a project at work that then shows them, or you can also, of course, list them on your resume. But it's really thinking about how do you get yourself into that sort of highest possible position, um, or sorry, you get yourself into a position in the highest possible office, right? So
Mhm.
how do you figure out how you get there? And then once you're there, the job descriptions, there are very few linear careers. And actually, in 20 years of doing executive search, I very rarely interviewed an interesting person. In fact, I don't know if I ever interviewed an interesting person who had a linear career path. Right? It was
Mhm.
always the right turns and the left turns and the U turns. That's what made people interesting. So it's not following like, here's the job and I do everything the job description and then I get to the next job, and then here's the job, I do everything the job description and I get to the next job. That's not how it works, right? It's networking and it's projects and it's volunteers and it's getting noticed, and the only way to do that is to make sure that you're actually getting noticed by the eyes that make the decisions.
I remember listening to Michelle Obama speak twice, once here at the Barclays Center and once in Washington, D.C. And she said that Barack taught her the art of the swerve because she was very much a box checker. She's like, you do
Yes.
this, you do this, you do this. And he really taught her that there's many different swerves to getting to where you need to go.
Hmm. I think that I think swerves are super interesting. I mean, think about people that you enjoy talking to at dinner parties, even. They're
Yeah.
not people who are like 25 years in the gold watch, like the people who are interesting are the ones who are sort of outside of the label.
Hmm. Hmm. And have led in non-traditional lives.
Yes.
You referenced this already, but I want to kind of wind it up here and then start to get to everyone's questions. When you say go smaller to get bigger, you referenced that you should also make your resume work for you. What does that mean?
Yeah, so, it's all well and good for me to tell people like go out and find your calling, but like not everybody can do that, right? There's bills to pay, the children's to raise, or classes to take. Whatever it is that's getting in the way of living out your dreams, I hear you. I get you. Like I've got kids, I've got a husband with a super inflexible job. Like we've had a pandemic, like we're all limited by a lot of things. So how do we live a limitless life? Some of that is to figure out how to increase our optionality.
Hmm.
So, years and years ago, I was driving one of my kids to work. I think he was like 13 at the time. And I was complaining about how I didn't get a good night's sleep. And I had a chapter due to my publisher and I wasn't going to get any writing done. And I wasn't getting anything done today. And I was just kind of like bemoaning my lot in life. And he sort of looked at me and he was like, well, just like go on a side quest. I was like, "What's a side quest?" Now, any of you who play video games are like, "Yeah, side quest, that makes sense." But I had no idea what a side quest was because I haven't played a video game since like Pong on the Atari in 1986. And he was like, "Mom, okay, like if you're playing a video game and the goal of the video game is to go and slay the dragon, but you're playing like a multi-level, like a multiplayer game. So you're waiting for your friends to finish doing the dishes so that they can get online and help you slay the dragon. How do you do it? Well, in order to slay the dragon, you need a horse to get to the dragon. You need armor so that you don't get hurt along the way. You need a sword. You need some potions. Like they're things that you're going to need, right? Oh,
Hmm.
also you're going to need money so that you can buy all the things. So you're a farmer, till your wheat. You till your
Hmm.
wheat, you get your money, you trade that money for potions and, swords and horses and all the things. And he was like, "So till your wheat." And I was like, "Oh," he's like, "There are things that you can do today that will make you better at the things that you want to do tomorrow." He's like, "So fill your time." He's like, "If you can't do the thing that you want to do, you can't do the class, you can't go for the promotion, you're like waiting for your kids to be a little bit older and, in school so you can be back and work full time, whatever the thing might be, you can do all these side quests. So you can reframe that current problem as an opportunity. It's not how are you limited, but it's how can you increase your future optionality by collecting those people, the networks, the knowledge, the resources that you're going to need later.
I love that you brought that up because there is someone who's on this call right now who has made her living, really cut her teeth in the health and wellness space.
Mhm.
And then life gets a hold of you, right? And so it was kids' colleges and financial responsibilities that took her away from that. And now she's working in the insurance industry. Kids are about to leave, and she's thinking about how she can active pivot back to her first love, which is wellness and health.
Mhm.
And so we are having avid conversations about what that transition is going to look like. What is that financial transition going to look like? Can she afford to make that financial transition? The golden handcuffs are so compelling. So, to that end, what could she be doing while she's in this holding pattern and transitioning out?
I mean, I think that there's several things. I mean, the first thing I would say is she's got to come up with two numbers, right? There's the want to make number and the need to make number. So the
Mhm.
need to make number is like, what's your nut? Like, what's the mortgage? What's the college, what's the college tuition? Like, what does your life cost you? And
Mhm.
then the second number is the want to make number. And that's like, what would the life you'd love to have cost you, right? So what does the life you currently have cost you, the need to make number? And what is the life you want to have, right? The want to make number. And somewhere in between the need to make and the want to make number is where she should land, right? We'd all love to land here, but landing there demands a lot of sacrifices that she's probably not going to want to make. At least I know in my life, I don't make the sacrifices that I would need to make to maximize my profitability. I instead think about, am I maximizing my personal freedom and flexibility? And am
Mhm.
I maximizing my impact on the world? And I know that the profits will come later, right? I'm making enough money. I don't need to make all the money.
Mhm.
By the way, if you're a business owner, I think that those are sort of the three variables: maximizing profit, maximizing impact, and maximizing flexibility. I think it's very hard to make decisions across all three at the same time, but you can make decisions across one and even two But it's,
Mhm.
and there should be some, like, you should make decisions across the same one or two for a while, and then you can switch to something else, like if your kids are grown, or like, as the world changes and your situation changes. But I think having that as sort of I think that's a good framework to make those decisions. So number one, she can think about those two numbers, the need to make and the want to make number. And then number two, she can spend time putting together her offering, right? She can build her website. She can put together her collateral materials. She can record some videos. She can create a course. There's tons of things that she can do now. The health and wellness space, I mean, how are you a healthy human, right? You eat better food, you drink more water, you move your body more, you surround yourself with positive people, you take the right supplements, the right vitamins. The science is changing, but it's not changing that fast, right? Like,
Mhm.
there's things that she can put some of that collateral material together. And then the third thing is to start building out her network. Right. So my friend Dory Clark has this great mastermind called the Recognized Expert Group.
Yeah.
And it talks all about how to be a recognized expert. Number one, you need a big idea. Like, what's your idea? The health and wellness space, and how do you approach it? Number two, do you have credibility, right? What's your social proof? Has she given any talks? Does she have any recordings? Does she have, any articles? And then number three, what's your network? So how broadly can you spread that idea? So she can be working on all those things right now,
Mm.
even before she jumps into doing this full time.
Laura, so powerful. For that person who I know is on this line right now and is listening, I hope that that is just an armor full of things that you can walk away and start doing. Um, Here's the next question. I have a demanding day job. I'm tired. How do I devote time to my side hustle? So here's somebody that has found their calling, they've zeroed in on it, but their day job just isn't allowing them to dedicate to their passion and to even think about following it. So, what would you recommend to this person?
It's hard to say without knowing all the details. But and I'm gonna be a little pushy here. I believe that a lot of times we say that we're really busy and that we can't get to something, when the truth is we don't necessarily want that thing. It may be that you want the side hustle, and I believe that you want the side hustle, but it may be that you haven't determined yet exactly what the side hustle is going to do for you, or you haven't completely fleshed out how much money it will make and what the pathway is to get from here to doing that full time. So until it becomes real enough, and until you believe in it enough, and until you understand enough what it can do for you, it's very hard to want something that's not, a certain thing, right? So I say to people all the time, like, if you're not making time for something, it's probably because it's not that important to you. So
Mm,
I'm not saying that
fair.
your side hustle is not that important to you. I'm saying that the understanding of how the side hustle will live in your life does not feel real enough to you, that vision isn't important enough. So
Mhm.
I think the step that you need to take is not working on the side hustle, but is thinking about what that side hustle can actually represent. Spend some time not working in the business of it, but working on the business of, how do I put together my a budget, the P&L, what's the nut that I need to make, and make sure that you understand what it'll be. And I think once you then see the potential fully, like, really fleshed out in black and white numbers, that'll make it really real for you. And then if you can't make time for it, then maybe you don't want it. But I'm guessing that you'll be able to make time for it then, because it'll feel really real and it'll get you excited.
I did a talk yesterday on turning your wish into your lived reality. And I say that it stays a wish until you put a plan around it. Like,
Mhm,
until you dedicate a little bit of time to what this is going to look like, step one, two, and three, bare minimum,
mhm.
it's just going to stay a wish. And to your point, maybe you didn't really actually want it if you aren't even going to put a plan around how it's going to realize itself.
Yeah, I mean, I hear from people all the time. They're like, "I wish I could go back to school. I wish I could train for a race. I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that, but I'm too busy." And I'm like, "Busy's bullshit.
Hmm.
You're not
Hmm.
too busy. You just don't understand your dream well enough." Or somebody else handed you that dream. So it's really one or the other. And I'm guessing that this isn't somebody else's dream. This just isn't a fully fleshed out plan. So there's nothing to run towards.
And the other thing that I ask people to do is to really track your habits. I had a woman in my mastermind do that for a week, and she's like, I watch an alarming amount of Netflix. She's like,
Mhm.
that is time that I could spend writing, but it wasn't until you forced me to look at how I spend my week that I realized that there's actual time, pockets of time I could be spending doing creative writing. But guess what
Yes.
I'm doing? I'm mindlessly flipping through Netflix because the TV's in the bedroom and it's just easy to fall asleep to that.
Yes, I tell people that all the time. They're like, "How do you do so much?" I'm like, "How do you do so little?"
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing with your time? But, it's funny, like, we're all told, like, Beyoncé has the same 24 hours as you do, right? It's all this, like, productivity hustle porn that's
Hmm.
nonsense, and, I do think that we're all busy. I think there are a lot of demands on our time, but I think the real question is this your goal? And do you understand the plan to get there? Because you can't be insatiably hungry for someone else's dream. You just can't.
And is this a priority, which is also the other big question to ask.
Yes.
Laura and I are going to be wrapping up here in a few minutes. And if you have some questions, please put them in the chat and I'll make sure I ask them. This next question, Laura, is about overwhelm. This person has 4 separate ideas that they're equally juiced up about, but all 4 ideas can't transpire in the next 6 months. So, how does one cut through the overwhelm and prioritize which one to do first?
I mean, I guess my first question would be, are any of them time sensitive? Right. So, I'm working on my next book. At the same time, I put together a 30-page white paper on this, on the Great Resignation based on the 6,000 responses I had from the Limitless assessment survey. And I'm not that excited about the, you know, 30-page white paper. It's like I spent 20 years talking about like what inspires people at work and what's causing the Great Resignation and how you recruit people. And I left that search firm because I didn't really want to do it anymore. At the same time, it's a hugely topical issue, right? That I could get paid a lot of money to speak on, and I can get published in Harvard Business Review and places like that. And so I put down the next book that I'm writing, which is a little bit evergreen. And I was like, I really should work on that now. So I would say, think about the four areas. Is one of them topical? Will one of them not be relevant a little while from now? If it matters to you and it's interesting, then do it. But I also think you might also say, like, it's actually not that interesting. It's topical, but I don't want to do it. And it's not going to be relevant 6 months from now. And that's okay.
Mhm.
Right. So I think, like, does it fuel you? Does it excite you? Is it something that's going to help you get from here to wherever you want to get to? So taking that rubric of connection, of calling, connection, contribution, and control. Number one, will this thing help me? Will this idea help me get closer to the calling or further from it? Number two, will this thing help someone else? If it's not going to help you, but it's going to help someone else and you're excited about that idea, then do it, right? Awesome. Number three, will it cause me joy? So if it's not going to help you and it's not going to help someone else, but you're going to love every minute of it, amazing, go for it. You'll figure out the rest later. And then number four, is there somebody who's better suited to do it? So looking at all four of these ideas, are you the person? Like, is there somebody who is better, who is smarter, who is faster, who is more networked? Should they be doing it instead? And
Mhm.
maybe that's not the one you do because you're going to spend more time competing than, actually scaling. So thinking about those things may help you get to a better yes around one versus the other three.
I love it. I love that. Laura, let's wind it down here. What you're working on your next book, what is that called?
The next book's going to be called Wonder Hell.
And what is Wonder Hell?
So, those moments where you've done something, you've actually accomplished something, you were successful, you didn't actually know if you could pull it off, but you did it. And it's amazing, it's exciting, it's humbling, it's wonderful. But also, you've never been so exhausted and full of stress and anxiety and dread and uncertainty and doubt in your entire life. It's
Mm.
kind of wonderful, but it's also kind of hell.
Hmm.
That's wonder hell. And wonder hell is the moment that the burden of your potential walks into your psyche and is like, hey, Joya, what you got for me? Are you going to live into this newfound you, this person that you just saw you could be in this moment of success? Are you going to live into this newfound you that you didn't know existed last week, last month, or last year? Or are you going to let her pass you by?
Hmm.
And it's in that moment of wonder hell that we realize just how much ego we have and just how much we want in our lives. And we go, oh, I think I want more. This is amazing. How am I going to survive it? Right? I'm exhausted. I don't know. And so my next book is about finding myself in this moment of wonder hell. Um, and just basically interviewing 100 different people to figure out my way out of it. And what I realized is that it's not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. So
Mm.
how do we embrace our ambition? How do we get comfortable with all the mixed emotions that surround this uncertain moment? And how do we learn to live with the fact that on the other side of this wonder hell is the next one and the next one, and if we're lucky, the next one after that?
Laura, great interview today. We're going to leave it there. If anyone wants to work with you, have you come speak to them, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my name is Laura Gassner Otting. All my good friends call me LGO. So you can find me on all the socials at Hey LGO, and heylgo.com is a shortcut to tons of resources and my website. My book, Limitless: How to Ignore Everybody, Carve Your Own Path, and Live Your Best Life, is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and anywhere fine books are sold. And yeah, you can find the Limitless Assessment at limitlessassessment.com. And I hope to hear from you soon.
Amazing. Laura, and I referenced this a couple of times, but I have something called the Samatha Lab Mastermind. Samatha in my language means summit. And I'm now have opened enrollment for this cohort. We're going to be talking about turning that wish into a reality. I referenced that too. And so if you would like to apply for that cohort, that kicks up in October, you can always get in touch with me at joya@joyadas.com. Laura, great conversation. Good to see you today.
Thank you, Joya.